Have you ever missed someone so much that even your memories became your teacher, showing you how to love again and how to speak English more clearly? This isn't just a winter love story from Denmark. It's the journey of someone who once wanted to give up on love and on learning a language. But in the cold and the heartbreak, I discovered something strange. Sometimes the best way to train your English listening, reading, and speaking is to listen to your own heart. A question in the cold. Have you ever stood alone in the snow, wondering why the cold outside feels exactly like the cold inside your chest? That was me one winter morning in Copenhagen. The streets were silent, except for the crunch of my boots on ice. I asked myself a question I still don't fully know how to answer. Why do we keep remembering someone who's already gone, even when we know the story is over? At that time I was lost, not just in love but in language. I had moved to Denmark thinking I could build a new life, learn English better, maybe even start fresh. But somehow I ended up feeling smaller with every mistake I made. Every time I tried to speak, my tongue froze. Every time I tried to understand, my mind went blank. It was as if my confidence had packed its bags and flown home without me. They say language connects people. But when you're surrounded by silence, the kind that comes from not knowing the right words, it can feel like you're locked outside of every conversation, every warmth. I used to stare at people laughing together in cafes, hearing the rhythm of English words I couldn't catch. It was like music played just beyond a wall I couldn't break through. And then there was her. The one who smiled at me that morning under the pale winter sun. Her English was soft, careful, patient. She didn't laugh when I mixed up words or when my accent stumbled over itself. She just listened. Slowly, our conversations became my classroom, and her laughter my lesson in courage. Looking back, I realized that learning English wasn't really about memorizing words or grammar. It was about daring to speak when your voice shakes. It was about understanding that connection doesn't need perfect sentences. It just needs honesty. That morning in the cold, I didn't know it yet, but that question, why do we remember someone who's gone, would become the thread weaving through my entire journey. A journey through love, loss, and learning to speak. Not just English, but my own truth. First snow, first love. The first snow in Denmark feels like a secret being whispered to the world. The air gets quiet. The streets turn into silver rivers, and for a moment, you believe the world can start again. That's exactly how my story with her began. Under the first snow, when everything seemed possible, we met at a small Christmas market near Nyhavn. I was struggling to ask for hot chocolate in English, fumbling with words like cinnamon, whipped cream, and to go. She laughed. Not the cruel kind of laugh, but the kind that warms your ears even when your hands are freezing. You mean with cream on top? She said, gently helping me finish my sentence. That was the first time I realized language can melt ice faster than the sun. We started meeting more often. Small talks at cafes, long walks along the canal, quiet evenings where she'd teach me simple phrases. Don't rush, she used to say. English is like snow, it falls softly, not all at once. I didn't know then that I was learning more than pronunciation. I was learning what patience sounds like. Those days felt like magic. My world, once filled with hesitation, began to bloom with sound. I repeated words out loud, practiced sentences on the way home, and whispered her name as if it were part of my vocabulary list. I didn't just fall in love with her. I fell in love with the rhythm of speaking, with the courage that came from being understood. But love, just like snow, doesn't stay forever. It's beautiful because it melts. And when it does, it leaves traces, footprints, memories, and lessons you can't unlearn. If I could go back to that first snow, I wouldn't change a thing. Not the mistakes, not the awkward pauses, not even the shyness in my voice. Because every imperfect word I spoke brought me closer, not just to her, but to the version of myself who dared to try. And maybe that's what real learning is, not being flawless but being brave enough to say something anyway. The language of silence. Silence has a sound. You just need a lonely winter in Denmark to hear it. It's the quiet between two people who don't know what to say next. The pause between broken grammar and shy smiles. That silence used to scare me. But over time I learned something surprising. Silence also speaks. When you're learning a new language, silence can feel like failure. You think, I should be talking, I should be improving, I should know this by now. But sometimes silence isn't the absence of learning. It's the space where understanding grows. She taught me that. When I ran out of words, she didn't fill the silence with impatience. She waited. She looked at me like my clumsy English was still worth listening to. We'd sit by the frozen lake, sipping warm tea from paper cups. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. But I could feel her meaning in her eyes, in the way she exhaled softly, in the way she looked at the sky. That's when I realized communication isn't just vocabulary. It's presence. Psychologists say that when we're quiet together, our brains start syncing, our breathing, even our heart rate. That's why being silent with someone you trust feels calm, not awkward. I think that's how I began to truly learn English, not from textbooks or apps, but from moments where I simply listened. You see, listening isn't passive. It's an art. When you listen deeply, your brain starts predicting patterns, building rhythm, feeling emotion. You don't just learn words, you learn people. That's what English became for me. Not a test to pass, but a bridge to cross. Slowly looking back, I understand now why she smiled so much when I said nothing. Maybe she knew that language wasn't our strongest connection. Maybe she also heard the same thing I did. That quiet, steady rhythm of two hearts trying to understand each other without words. And that's when I stopped fearing silence. Because silence, if you let it, can teach you everything words cannot. When words melt like snow. Every time I spoke English, it felt like walking on ice. One wrong step and I'd slip into embarrassment. My tongue was clumsy, my accent heavy, and my grammar, well, it melted faster than snow on my gloves. But funny enough, that's exactly how I started to learn. Not from being perfect, but from watching my mistakes melt, reshape, and become something new. There was one day I'll never forget. We were walking through the old streets of Aarhus, snowflakes falling between us. I wanted to tell her, I like spending time with you. But I ended up saying, I like spending times with you. She laughed. Not the mocking kind, but the warm, genuine kind that makes your heart thump in sync with your embarrassment. Then she said, well, I like spending times with you too. Every one of them. That tiny correction, that laughter, it did more for my English than any classroom ever could. Because in that moment, I realized mistakes weren't proof of failure. They were proof that I was trying. Linguists call this the interlanguage phase, the beautiful chaos between your old language and your new one. It's when your brain starts rewiring itself, creating a bridge that's awkward but alive. Every wrong word you speak actually builds a new path in your mind. Your neurons fire, connect, and say, "Hey, we're learning." From then on, I stopped apologizing for my English. I started talking more to baristas, to bus drivers, to the snow itself. I repeated phrases I'd heard from her, whispered them under my breath until they became part of me. And every time I made a mistake, I smiled, because it meant I was melting. You know, snow only shows its beauty when it melts. That's when it nourishes the earth, becomes water, becomes life. Maybe our words are the same. They don't have to stay perfect. They just have to flow. That winter I spoke like melting snow, imperfect, fleeting, and full of warmth. The goodbye on the bridge. It was on a bridge, the kind that holds more stories than stones, where everything ended. The snow had turned to slush, the sky to gray, and my heart to silence. We stood there, the river below us frozen in stillness, just like the words I couldn't say. I wanted to tell her everything. How much she taught me, how much she changed me, how much I wished this winter would never end. But all I managed was, "I'll miss your kindness." She smiled, the kind of smile that says goodbye before the mouth ever moves. "You'll be fine," she said. "You have your words now." And just like that, she walked away. Did I remember the sound of her footsteps fading, and the cold wind filling the empty space where her presence used to be. For a moment, I thought I'd forgotten all my English. My brain refused to form sentences. My heart was translating only pain. That's when I learned a truth I never read in any language book. Sometimes goodbye is the hardest word you'll ever have to pronounce, and the days after, I couldn't stop replaying that scene. I'd walk the same bridge, whispering words to the wind, trying to practice, trying to understand. Why does love always end when you finally learn to speak? I asked myself. But over time I realized she was right. She didn't leave me with emptiness. She left me with language, with a voice I didn't have before. Pain, strangely enough, is a powerful teacher. Neuroscientists say emotional memories anchor deeper into the brain. That means every word I learned during that time, every "I love you," every "I miss you," every goodbye, became carved into my mind forever. I didn't just remember vocabulary, I remembered feelings attached to them. That bridge became my classroom. Every time I crossed it, I practiced speaking softly, slowly, letting the cold air carry my words. And one day, without realizing it, I said aloud, "I'm okay." The bridge didn't answer, but the echo came back, steady, strong, real. And in that moment I believed it. The winter that spoke back. Winter has a strange way of talking to you when you're finally quiet enough to listen. After she left, I started hearing things I never noticed before. The creak of the wooden windows in my small apartment, the hum of bicycles rolling over icy roads, even the soft whoosh of snow sliding off rooftops. Everything had a rhythm. Everything was speaking. At first it felt like loneliness. But then it became language. I realized that English, and maybe love too, wasn't something you learn from people only. It was something the world kept whispering if you paid attention. Every morning I'd make coffee, sit by the frosty window, and read out loud to myself. My voice was shaky, my pronunciation still foreign. But as days passed, I started to hear something new, not perfection but connection. Each word had weight now, shaped by memory, softened by loss. I didn't sound like a native speaker, but I sounded real. One morning, the sunrise hit the snow just right, golden and quiet. I said aloud, The light is beautiful today. And for the first time, I didn't think about grammar or accent or correctness. I just felt it. That's when I knew I wasn't just learning English anymore. I was learning how to be present. Science backs it up too. When we speak about our emotions, even in a second language, our brain rewires how it processes pain. It's called linguistic reappraisal. Basically, every time I described how I felt, I wasn't just practicing English. I was healing. That winter spoke to me in ways I can't fully translate. It said, "You're learning, even when you're quiet." It said, "You're not lost, you're unfolding." I used to think I'd never recover from that goodbye. But standing in the cold, repeating words to no one but the snow, I realized something. The world doesn't stop talking when someone leaves. You just have to learn to listen again. And when I finally did, winter stopped feeling cold. When you listen, you heal. There's a moment in every learner's journey when you stop chasing perfection and start listening for truth. For me, that moment came one quiet night in my tiny Danish apartment. The wind howled outside like a restless ghost, and I sat there, replaying an old voice note of her teaching me to say, "Believe in yourself." I whispered it back slowly, clearly. And for the first time, it didn't sound like her voice anymore. It sounded like mine. That's when I understood. Learning a language isn't about mastering it. It's about making it yours. I began to turn my loneliness into practice. I'd listen to English podcasts in the morning, repeating each sentence like a conversation with the world. I'd read poems aloud in the park, ignoring the curious glances from strangers. And sometimes I'd talk to the snow, yes, literally. I'd say, "How are you today?" And imagine the snow replying, "Still cold, but still here." It was silly, but it made me smile. And science agrees, when you speak out loud, even to yourself, you activate more areas of your brain than when you stay silent. It's called active recall. Your brain isn't just hearing words. It's building confidence. You're rewiring how you see yourself, from a student who listens to a human who speaks. So I practiced every day. Slowly, patiently, warmly. Some days I failed miserably. Some days I felt unstoppable. But every word, every mistake, every whisper into the cold Danish air, it all became proof that I was still moving, still growing. And here's the secret no one tells you. The more you listen, not just to people but to the small voice inside you, the more fluent you become in kindness, in understanding, in life itself. That I wasn't just training my ears anymore. I was training my heart to stay open, even after goodbye, even after silence, even after snow. Because healing, like language, starts with one small sound. You listening to yourself again. Some goodbyes never freeze. They say time heals everything, but I think that's only half true. Some goodbyes never really melt. They just become part of who you are. Every winter since that last one in Denmark, I still catch myself looking out the window when the first snow falls. I don't see her face anymore, but I feel her presence, soft, distant, like a warm echo that never fades. It's strange how love and language share the same rule. You never really finish learning them. You just get better at understanding their silences. That's what I've learned since she left. English is no longer a subject I study. It's a memory I live through every time I speak. Every sentence I form, every word I pronounce correctly, carries a trace of that winter, of that bridge, of her voice saying, "You'll be fine." And she was right. I am. Now, when I teach others how to listen, read, and speak English, I tell them, don't chase speed. Don't chase perfection. Chase connection. The kind that makes your heart skip, the kind that reminds you language was never about rules, it was always about feeling. Some nights I still talk to the snow. I tell it stories in slow English about love and loss and the beauty of trying again. And when the snow doesn't answer, I smile, because I know deep down it's listening. That's how I know this. Some goodbyes never freeze. They stay warm, hidden in the small sounds of your everyday speech, in the courage to say something even when your voice trembles. So if you're watching this and you feel like giving up, don't. Because maybe the thing that hurts now is just teaching you how to speak your truth. Slowly, softly, like snow melting into spring. That's all for today. I'll make more videos like this in the future. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss them.